Nobody tells testers this, but every tester has tested a feature they didn't fully understand and hoped for the best. That's not bad practice. It's just what happens when specs are complex, time is short, and there's nobody available to explain it. Today, Claude fills that gap. Subscribe so you don't miss the rest of Module 3, and if there's a complex feature on your plate right now, drop the spec in the comments, and I'll show you the first 3 questions Claude would ask. Here's what we're covering. First, how to paste any spec into Claude, no matter how technical, and get a plain English explanation of what the feature actually does and how it works. Then, how Claude reads between the lines to surface hidden risks and edge cases that nobody wrote down. We'll also generate clarifying questions to ask before the sprint starts, which protects you from testing on wrong assumptions. Then, we'll build a testing strategy from Claude's analysis. And finally, my favorite use case in this whole video, using Claude as a real-time thinking partner while you're in the middle of a testing session. Let's be honest about why this happens. Specs written for developers are dense, full of technical references, and assume context you don't have. You read it 3 times, and you understand the basic idea, but you don't know what the riskiest flows are, what the edge cases are, or what questions you should be asking before you start. And because you can't quite articulate what's unclear, you don't ask. You test based on your best interpretation and hope it's right. Here's what happens. You test the obvious flows, miss the complex interactions, and something ships that breaks in production. Claude changes this. It reads the spec from a QA perspective, not a developer perspective, and tells you everything a tester needs to know before writing a single test case. Here's the first prompt. We give Claude the full spec and ask for 3 things. Explain what this feature does in plain English, walk through the main user journeys it creates, and identify anything unclear, missing, or contradictory. Look at the output. Plain English summary. This is a split payment feature. A clear breakdown of the 3 main user journeys, and then the gaps section. 3 specific ambiguities Claude found that the spec doesn't address. What happens when the card fails mid-split? Whether store credit can be combined with a discount code, and whether the split amount is fixed or adjustable. These are the exact questions you need answered before you start testing. Claude found them in seconds. Now we take those gaps and turn them into structured questions. The follow-up prompt is simple. Write the clarifying questions I should ask the BA and developer, and explain why each one matters for testing. Look at Q1. If the card fails during a split payment, is the store credit already deducted? Without this answer, you can't write the test case. 2 completely opposite behaviors are possible, and both affect what the expected result should be. Q2. Can store credit be combined with a discount code? If yes, you need a separate set of tests for that interaction. If no, you need to test that the system correctly prevents it. Q3 and Q4 are for the developer, the boundary values you need to know before you can write boundary test cases. Send these questions in sprint planning. They show you've done the analysis, and they protect you if the spec changes later. Is the most powerful prompt in the video. After Claude understands the feature, ask it, what are the highest risk scenarios that are not covered in the spec? Focus on interactions with other features, timing issues, and data edge cases. Look at what it finds. Critical, partial payment failure with no rollback. The card fails after the store credit is already deducted. The user has lost credit and has no order to show for it. This scenario is not mentioned anywhere in the spec. Critical, concurrent sessions. 2 browser tabs submitting the split payment at exactly the same moment. Both succeed. The order is placed twice, the card is charged twice, the credit is used twice. Completely absent from the spec. These 2 bugs would have shipped and found by users if nobody had thought to test for them. Claude found them from a plain English description of the feature. This is the use case I personally find most valuable. Keep Claude open in a second tab while you're testing. When you find something unexpected, something that doesn't look right but you're not sure if it's a bug, describe it to Claude and ask. Look at the first example. The tester notices that when a discount code is applied, the store credit field updates, but the card amount doesn't change. The total is now lower than the sum of the 2 payment amounts. They describe it to Claude. Claude confirms it's very likely a bug, explains why. The system should redistribute the total across both payment sources when the discount changes it, and immediately gives you the next 3 tests to run to understand the full scope of the issue. That's the value, not just confirming what you found, but telling you what to test next. Let's wrap up the 4-step workflow. Paste the spec, get a plain English explanation, and a list of gaps. Turn those gaps into clarifying questions and ask them before the sprint starts. Ask Claude for hidden risks, the scenarios the spec doesn't mention. And keep Claude open during testing as a real-time thinking partner. This video is about one of the most common struggles in QA, and Claude makes it genuinely manageable. In video 15, we close out Module 3 with something practical that ties the whole series together: building your own QA prompt library, a reusable collection of prompts for every test and task you do, so you're never starting from scratch. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you have a complex spec you're working from right now, paste it or describe it in the comments. I'll show you what Claude makes of it.